city manager is the one who basically runs city government, runs the administrative side of things. And we read that somebody is unhappy with the performance of the city manager. It's like a red flag in terms of some of the significant issues. So tell us, what is it you mentioned that you're the willingness to take public input, which we've heard before. First of all, when you say you're unhappy, is this a relationship that you were on the commission that could be patched up and reconciled, or do you think this is it's time to look for a new city manager? To what degree are you unhappy?
Well, I think that I think that probably any relationship can be repaired.
Okay.
I think some are more likely than others, but it's one of the things that's so important about this election is that opportunity for change. And that change comes at all levels of the government. And one of the complaints that I hear over and over again is people are feeling shut out of the process. We have neighborhoods which are the backbone of the city, and they are very active and very concerned, and no one knows more about the issues facing Fort Lauderdale than our neighborhoods. And if they aren't active participants in the solutions, then something's wrong.
How are they being shut out?
Their input isn't being considered. I think that there are projects that go on that they don't even find out about. And I don't know that it's, I don't attribute bad intent to anyone.
Right.
But I think that there are people that have a culture of communication, and there are people that don't. And I think that one of the things that's so important about city government is to be sure that we have that culture of communication where we are always reaching out to people. We were always reaching out, finding out what their input is, and asking people what they think about what the city's doing. Are they doing a good job? Are they doing a bad job? And how we can improve it.
When you say they're shut out, I mean, where is the city commissioner who represents that district in all this? I mean, if you're in a neighborhood and you've got a complaint, the one you should go to is your commissioner.
Yeah, but the role of the commissioners isn't to guide city staff. In fact, they're specifically not supposed to do that. So the city commissioner is going to say, talk to the staff, talk to the city manager. I can't direct what happens at that particular park. I can't direct what happens, to any particular city staff. So inevitably, citizens must deal with the administration.
And that's where you think the lack of communication is.
Right. I mean, we have take our police department, for example. We have a tremendous problem with retention in the departments of it. And if you talk to, as I'm sure you have, many of the officers, they say the morale problem is not entirely, but part of the problem is a result of the relationship with the city and with the administration. It's not only affecting our public safety, but it also becomes a budgetary problem because that turnover is very expensive. Someone made the joke to me today that the Fort Lauderdale PD has become the training ground for police officers around the county. And that's only said partially tongue-in-cheek because the turnover is real and the expense to the city is real. And if we don't have a department where when somebody signs up on day one and they say, this is where I want to spend the rest of my career, this is where I want to retire from, then we're going to continue to have that kind of turnover, which spills over, like I said, into public safety, it spills over to the budget, and that's not an acceptable situation, especially in tight budgetary times.
You mentioned the city over the years has missed some great opportunities. Can you be more specific than that?
Relating to?
Well, whatever you were talking about. You said we missed great opportunities apparently to get some things accomplished.
Well, I think that maybe one of the best examples of that is I was speaking to, and this is just symptomatic part of the problem, I was talking to some members of the Broward Alliance. Economic development is a real problem. I mean, it's something that's really been ignored. I mean, I was joking on the radio yesterday that Mr. Huizinga has been the Economic Development Department for Fort Lauderdale and Broward County for 20 years. And we've had it easy. And we are very lucky to be the benefactor of such a generous man. But what it has meant is that we haven't gotten our act together as far as economic development goes. I was talking to people from Broward Alliance, and they said, we have, I believe, the largest software company not located in Silicon Valley here in Fort Lauderdale. And that's a huge opportunity to build a cluster of industry around. Not just jobs, but high-paying jobs. These are the kind of jobs that any city in the country would kill for, and we haven't approached them. And in fact, companies like Citrix, my understanding from talking to people in the business is they feel left out, and they feel that the only time that the city contacts them is when they want something. We should be approaching them. These opportunities don't present themselves every day, and if we're not taking the obvious ones, then, you know, it makes no sense for us to dream about bigger things than that.
You're talking about redevelopment also in some of these areas that is going to be a little difficult, would you say? In the Northwest in particular, some redevelopment in those areas?
Redevelopment in the Northwest will be difficult. I think redevelopment, frankly, as you all know, I mean, is going to be difficult anyway. There's no money for anything. But even if the economy were to improve, which it undoubtedly will improve, you know, we need to, you know, the CRA is a good thing, but we need to see if we can do more in the Northwest in particular. But redevelopment is an issue around the city. You know, Fort Lauderdale grew up at a time when our zoning, you know, before we'd really gotten a good job with zoning. So we see mixed use, we see multifamily right next to single family, and all these uses that you won't see out west, all these mixtures that you won't see. And we're going through some of the growing pains as we start to replace some of that housing stock. And what we've got to do is be more sensitive to. We've got to do a better job of incorporating those redeveloped projects into the existing city. We have to redevelop our housing stock. Much of it is old, much of it's deteriorating, and it's a process that we will continue to go through, you know, for the entire life of the city. But this is really the first round when we've had to replace and redevelop, essentially, significant parts of our housing stock, and we haven't done a great job of it. And it's an important process, but what we've got to do is we've got to be sensitive to how it affects the people that have to live with it, the neighbors in the neighborhoods.
Speaking of neighborhoods and the economy and lenders and bankers, you mentioned code enforcement on foreclosed homes. How do you get a bank who's foreclosed on a house and is not maintaining the upkeep? How do you convince that bank to do what they're supposed to do?
I guess the real point that I was trying to make is you hear rumors and that the city's not pursuing code enforcement on foreclosed homes because they'll do the work, they'll lien it, and they'll get foreclosed out. My real point in all of that is, once it's been foreclosed and it's owned by a bank, you can do all the work you want because there's nothing ahead of you from a financial standpoint. There's no lien ahead of you. You'll get that money back. So while they are occupied by the homeowners and the residents, we're stuck. We're stuck just like everybody else. We're going to have to work with them and cooperate with them and encourage them to do what they can. But to the extent that they don't, if we do it, we're probably not going to get paid for it. But once the bank owns it, we can do that work. We can make sure that that work gets done, that we protect our neighborhoods, that we board up the windows, that we mow the grass, that we don't allow the continued deterioration of the values in the city. And if we lien it